Hi everyone, how are you doing? I do a fair amount of sketching and very few of them are drawn in color as finished illustrations. And now I found this sketch and I want to finish drawing it. I had to work hard and find a reference from which I drew this portrait. Why I decided to complete it, it is because I really like the lighting and the overall atmosphere of the reference. There is a feeling that the fight has just ended, and this warm light of the setting sun foreshadows hope for a better future. This is somehow how I imagine this scene. What associations do you have? I really like to draw such contour lighting, and today I will show you how I do it. But first I will ask you to subscribe to the channel and press the bell so as not to miss the new helpful videos. I always start my drawings with a messy sketch where I find the basic large shapes and the general idea of the illustration. If I draw a complex composition with a background and characters, then by drawing such a sketch I determine the place for each object and the general shape. If this is a portrait, then it is also more generalized at the first stage of sketching. Since I already have the first layer with a messy sketch, I draw a more detailed sketch on top of another layer, specifying the size and shape of the parts of the object, thereby preparing the basis for further coloring, so as not to return to clarify details in the future. I don't draw a finishing line on top of a received sketch because in my work I don't use line art drawing in any way. I came to this decision when I saw the time spent on the line drawing and that I then closed this layer and it doesn't not play any role in the end. In general, I realized that I didn't need it. I changed the sketch a little more, hiding the first layer and moved on to the color sketch. If I'm doing a quick sketch to practice a skill, most often I don't draw a color sketch. And in this drawing I realized that I need to decide on the shades because the background with the trees can merge with the girl's metal uniform. I needed to figure out how to create contrast between the foreground and background. When working in color, I start with the background so that I can match the tonality of the main character to it. And even if you just fill the background with one medium tone, it will be more comfortable for you to work with a character. A person will not be cut off from the environment. Very often, on a separately drawn background, a character looks like a glue applique. When I draw a plot illustration with a background, I carry out the process of drawing both the background and the character at the same time, clarifying the tonality and lighting solutions on 2 or 3 levels of the illustration at once. After the first stage of drawing the background, I do general fills of all the character elements. I am creating the basis of what I will work with next. This is not the most interesting stage in the drawing process, but it's impossible to do without it. I also want to draw your attention to how to convey the texture of the material. In general, drawing metal is very exciting and you can go so deep into drawing highlights, reflections, that this part of the illustration can steal all the attention. If this is the purpose of the drawing, then of course there is no question. But in my illustration, first of all, I want to show the feelings and emotions of the character. This is what I try to focus on. Therefore, in this portrait, I try to make the armor minimalistic, not very elaborate, but still leave a hint of the material from which it's made. Next will be an epic fail. Part of the work on this illustration has been lost. I didn't notice that the phone overheated and stopped recording video. Overall, you won't miss much. This is rendering the hair by adding blonde strands and adding a reddish tone to the nose and cheeks. Next, I paint the shadows on the first layer where is the base skin color. I decided that the light was reflected strongly from the armor and decided to make shadows on the nose from above, and I draw the lower lip darker because less light falls on it. I also decided to change the eye color to gray to create a repeat of color to harmonize the illustration. It also seems to me that the overall shape of the hair was unclear and I reduced the volume of the hair. I think it looks better this way. I move on to the most interesting and delicious moment in the portrait, the lighting. First, I use a soft brush to add a warm tint to the background using the Add Blending mode. Then, with the same brush, I paint soft lighting on the protruding part of the armor and along the right and left edges of the character, as I will have backlighting. So, the light source is behind the illuminated object. And if you look at the reference, you can see a contrasting bright light on the knight's hair. I repeat it in my drawing, and I decided that I would not blur the edge, but want to leave it clear. Also, a little light falls on the girl's face, but not so bright, so I make it paler. Then I move into the highlights on the hair, armor, eyes, also in Add mode, with an opacity of 20%. I think it's important to mention that highlights should be drawn according to the shape of the object. The same goes for shadows and reflections. They can't exist on their own, separated from the shape of the object they are on. I also realized that at that moment where I was not recording, I added a general tone of shadow to the entire figure, since it is in shadow in relation to the light source. And of course, some of the leaves that are higher than others also receive light. That's why I paint them light using the same blending mode. I also blur these leaves and little to convey depth in the illustration. This is how the portrait turned out. Share your impressions in the comments. I read them and answer them with pleasure.